Joe Earth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you.
That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 29. What's happening, bro?
Man, you know, when you just said 29, I was like, God. Remember when it was like 2 and then
I do.
9?
Yes.
Now it's 29.
I see what you did there. 2, 9, put them together.
Yeah.
Remember when you used to try to use your hands to like show us every episode?
I need to like, because I've never watched one back, or for fun fact, never listened to them back. I need to see if like on like how many I got wrong, because like I think the camera's set to do it right, but then I would try like this would be 14, but maybe it says 41 right now.
Yeah.
And all the reason why I stopped doing that, because like I'm confusing myself again. It's too much.
Yeah, and the listener who's never listened to any of these episodes is like, what are they talking about? Yeah. Joe likes to put his hands up in the camera while I'm looking at him to tell me numbers.
The scene from Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands. Like I try to like keep them in my pocket, but I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
This is coming to the world on Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day, Joe.
Yeah, man. I got some like Valentine's Day swag on, kind of like hearts and pink and stuff. No,
I think that's every day, pink and stuff. But yeah.
But this is fresh. This is new. Like this was opened yesterday.
Yeah. So for those of you not watching the YouTube, because you are legitimate podcast listeners, Joe's wearing the new suit gear,
which will be open again in about 10 days or so. So if you didn't get any on the first batch, be sure to check out the Ainsley's Angels of America family Facebook group. And when we launch that again, you too can get this pullover thing and some other stuff. I'm pumped over the shorts.
Now, what's pumping you about the shorts?
Well, the designs legit, I think. And to me, they have a good fit, probably just because they're also brand new. Mm-hmm. But the drawstring is like, it's one thing. So like did you ever in your other ones like wash them and then like the string comes out? Can't happen in this one. It's like a technology. It's like the Flugel binder from Cocktail. Like it's perfect.
Wow, that's 2 movie references in less than a minute and a half, dude.
Yeah.
That's good. Remember we used to do like I'd quote a movie and then you try to guess it? That was like a year ago. That was a bust.
Yeah, you were like going back to like 1967, like black and white. So I was like, we need to stick with like 83 and on into like a semi narrowed genre of things.
Okay, that's fair. Well, anyway, Valentine's Day, is it real? Is it made up? Like, do you participate in that?
Man, that's a lot of questions. 3 questions. So is it real? I mean, I guess it's real. It's on my calendar. Like it says like it's under US holidays. So I guess it's real. But yeah, I don't know. Like, what is it like Cupid and Aphrodite? I don't even know like the history. Yeah, I guess I participate in it more so like the boys to Leanne. But I'm always down to crush some Valentine's candy. So
okay, that's fair. Yeah. Well, it's a long story and you didn't ask, but I don't believe in it. I don't do it because I tried to do it with Lori like 30 years ago, and it was like one of the worst days of our relationship. Like couldn't decide what we wanted to do, and then we like sat there in silence and we're just upset with like, it's Valentine's Day, we're not doing anything, but we're supposed to be loving each other more today than the other day, and it's just a silly thing. So I was like, you know what, I'm out. I'm not messing with
going
this
to Taco
anymore.
Bell. Going to Taco Bell.
Yeah, give me a side of sour cream. Hey, dude, we didn't do Tales of the Course last time, and a few people have actually said, what's up? Why did you not do Tales of the Course? I'm like, well, because we ran out of time. And Amanda's episode 28 was, wow, got a lot of positive feedback on that one. So shout out. Thanks, Amanda. I wanted to tell you a tangent. Laura Morano texted me from Iceland or Norway or wherever she is. She finally found the podcast, and she too has a similar D1 athlete story. So, Amanda, Laura, y'all need to connect, have a chat. We need to get Laura on. Tangent back to what I was going to say. Tales of the Course. This is a story about an angel team that never came to be. This is also a story of why you might see an angel team in Oklahoma running with 2 flags displayed on one chariot. In 2016, Chris Brinkley had just started running. In fact, his minute mile was at 17 minutes. That same year, Chris met Kara, the 9-year-old daughter of one of his best friends. Kara was highly intelligent, loved music, especially Adele, and loved the people in her life. She could communicate exactly what she was thinking and feeling through her beautiful blue eyes. She also had a rare genetic disorder called Rett syndrome. Rett prevented Kara from walking, talking, feeding herself, but it didn't limit or dim her spirit. It's one thing that she and Chris loved to do was dance. Chris would put a finger in each of her clawed up hands, put music on, and dance with her. The time they spent together would change Chris forever. A friend referred Chris to Ainsley's Angels, but unfortunately, life and logistics got in the way and busy schedules. And before time went by, Kara unfortunately passed away before Chris had a chance to run with her. Chris still decided, however, to go run and was paired with a teammate named Kinsey. It was the first time he had ever run with Ainsley's Angels, and by Kinsey's reaction to the wind in her face and her smile, he decided that he was going to run and continue to run as much as he could with as many people as he could. And along the way, he saw that the improvements that were having on his ability as a runner, were improving every single time that he was running, and he wanted to continue to get better for his Angel riders. Angel teams on the course have always have this flag that has the Angel rider's name on it. Call it the rider flags. And for Angel riders that Chris has lent his legs to, he has a second flag. This one is an up-close image of Kara's face with the words, Kara's legacy. He chooses to honor Kara in every race that he runs because he believes that she changed him. She opened his eyes, his perspective, his world to a whole new place and gave him a way to make his little corner of the world better than it was before. Because of Kara, Chris says, I have been gifted with this amazing Ainsley's Angels family, who I would have never met otherwise, and I have loved my experience with Ainsley's Angels every step of the way. A few years ago, Chris became an ambassador for Ainsley's Angels in Oklahoma, to go from a man who ran a 17-minute mile by himself to now leading an effort and ambassadorship and transforming populations in central Oklahoma. This last November, in fact, he ran a race pushing, and his pace was under 9-minute miles. Down from 17 to 9. He says, I missed an opportunity to run with my Kara, but now I do everything I can to make sure that none of my Ainsley's Angels friends ever miss out on a run during my watch. Segment 3 of Tales from the Course. Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I like the end there on my watch, you know what I mean? And it, as you know, like the passing of the guard, passing of the torch, the military retirements, you know, I have the watch, and that's awesome that, you know, Chris has that watch out there in Oklahoma City doing great things. The 2 flag thing, yeah, I didn't know that. That's very neat. I mean, I know you had a similar experience, right? I mean, you used to run with Ainsley, and then when Ainsley couldn't run, you know, whether weather or she was sick, you said were running for Ainsley, and then when she transitioned, you realized you're always running for Ainsley, you know, and with Ainsley. So it's neat to see that you and Chris have that bond together, you know, you and Ainsley and him and Kara.
Yeah. No, you're right. In fact, I never knew that about Chris until I saw him in person. About 6 months ago, and we connected on that and related to that. And you know, I think that that's not an isolated connection. I think that so many of our family is driven by something, and that something is a story in and of itself. And I think that sets us up well for where I want to go with today's podcast. We have Andrew Reid with us, and he's been patiently waiting in the blue room, which doesn't exist, but it was cool to say. You know, the blue room, the green room.
Green.
I think it's green. So, let's do this. Without further ado, Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here, guys.
So we like to ask our guests from the jump, because they don't know you. No one knows who's Andrew. Nobody knows. So where are you physically coming to us from? What's happening there? And why do you think you've been invited to be our guest on episode 29?
I am currently LA based. The sun is rising outside of my window as we speak because I think it's either 9:22 or 10:22 your time, and it is 7:22 my time, so it's a little early over here. I am drinking my coffee, and I think I'm here because I had the opportunity to direct a documentary short film for Ainsley's Angels in partnership with On Running Shoes.
Yeah, well, that would be the surface level why you're here, but we want to dig way deeper into that last element that you pointed out. So for those of you that don't know, Andrew is the director for the recently released On Ainsley's Angels documentary short film video. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long, and it's on YouTube. We'll put a link down below. But we want to dive into that because, as we said in the opening kind of tales from the course, there's so much more to how someone gets to a certain point in their journey, and I want to dig into that. So, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
I noticed that you had a coffee, so let's just get this out of the way. It's Miller time. Ladies and gentlemen, Miller time, that part of the podcast where we invite you to grab your favorite beverage, kick back, relax, and if you're tube fed, look over there at your caregiver and tell them to hit the button. Or in the case of Josh Goldstein, just go hit the button, Josh. Come on. Anyway, what are you drinking out there in LA, Andrew?
I am drinking it's not like my latte hybrid. It's like I have a fancy Nespresso machine and I have my creamer and I create a nice combo. I'm a coffee lover.
So, Joe, that sounds like such a Los Angeles answer.
Yeah, there's two ways that's either like LA or like New York, and like there's no like in North Carolina I'm drinking a Kirkland Costco brand K-cup out of my gifted Ainsley's Angels cup. I saw like a nice glass one, but yeah, I like fancy coffee, but I don't know how to make it at home, and then like go to Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts, or there's like a local one here, and I like try to get one of those, and then they're like $11. I'm like, I just want one, and they're like, yeah, it's $11. I'm like, I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, I don't drink coffee at all, gentlemen, which blows people's mind to know that they now know a Marine that doesn't drink coffee. In the 4th grade, I tried coffee milk, but it was something about the aftertaste. So now today I'm going with Celsius. Not a sponsor
Yet.
Publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, right around $100 a share. At one point, it was $9 a share, and I know a guy who bought a bunch of them.
How about that? That's my afternoon caffeine.
Yeah, well, okay. Andrew, let's take it way back, man. I know that you hail from Jamaica, but tell us a little bit about what that was like, what brought you to the States. Just, enlighten us. Tell us a little story. I know you can do that.
I certainly can do that, Rooster. So, I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica. I migrated to the U.S. when I was 10 years old, so I still very much remember, my roots and my time living on an island. And I moved to Florida, so I always kind of have to be close to a beach. I don't know if you know, it's a parallel: Jamaica, Florida, California. So I'm very much I'm very much a man of the beach, and I was an undocumented immigrant for several years. How I even came into this country was there was a law that it no longer exists. It's like the Cuban Adjustment Act, and it's called like the wet foot, dry foot policy. And it was like pretty much if immigrant was able to live undocumented for over a year in the U.S., they were granted immunity. So actually, my dad worked construction, under the table for over a year, and my grandma is Cuban, and through my Cuban heritage, that kind of linked up to my dad, and then I'm his child, and that's what got me to the U.S. That's what made me a U.S. citizen. And
I I had no idea about the year thing, and it just shows my perspective and lack of knowledge on the subject. But no disrespect, but it almost sounds like hide and go seek. Like if you can hide for a year, like you're going to get this. And what do you get after a year? You get a citizenship or you get immunity? What'd you say about that?
Green card. You can apply for the green card and you can start the process to becoming a citizen. Become a citizen takes years, but you can start the process to legally live in the United States.
And after that year, you're not at risk of being extradited or what's the word? Exported, kicked out. What's the correct word?
That's a good question. I haven't been in fear of that for a while, so the terminology, don't quote me on that. But I will say that you can start the process. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I think a big deciding factor, regardless of the year or not, is whether you have the resources, the economic funds to still get a lawyer and to go through this process of attaining citizenship. So I wish it were so simple. But there are still many layers to the story of becoming a legal immigrant in America.
I had a feeling I could do a whole podcast on just this. It's intriguing to me, and it's changed so much over the years, depending on the political, climate that we're in. I think the correct word's deported. But okay. So, all right, at risk of like doing another 60 minutes on that process, after the year, you go ahead and you're able to apply. You get your green card. And there's a process from that point to until citizenship. Are you an American citizen now?
I am an American citizen, yes.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Very nice. I hear it's a process, man, like crazy difficult test that many high school graduates of American public school might have a hard time passing.
Yeah. I think there's actually like on those late night shows, they test them. I think like James Corden and Jimmy Kimmel have actually asked, people questions in the streets and they fail it, So I did study for that test. I'm here, so I passed. But it's quite a process, and it's interesting. When I came here at 10, I just have such a love and I'm very thankful to my parents for what they did because it's at an age where I didn't fully appreciate that transition. And as you get older, of course, you become more, or I think you should become more self-aware, more introspective, more conscious of what our lineage has done for us. And I did that historical dive and learned more about my roots.
Do you still have family in Jamaica and or Cuba?
Yes, I have family, aunts and uncles in Jamaica who I am close with, and I have relatives in Cuba that I have never met because how my grandma even came from Cuba to Jamaica was that she fled under Castro's reign, and she was just one of the people to get out. So that part of my culture, unfortunately, has just been a little diluted down the Game of Thrones lineage chain of the family.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, I gotta ask, what's that creature behind you? Is that I've never seen Game of Thrones. I just see this.
Yeah, you see this metallic. Well, this is gonna be another hour on potentially on the podcast, but I am a director, but I also work at a production company called Artist Equity, which is Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's production company. And this is artwork for the Justice League. And of course, one of the characters in this massively large poster that you can't see all of it behind me is Batman, or Ben Affleck Batman. And Ben Affleck Batman now lives in my bedroom. because
Dude, that is so cool. You got to get us a picture of it. We'll put it on our @Together We Shall podcast Instagram so that we can show everybody what we're talking about, because that looks really cool from here. That's neat.
Yeah, it's huge. It's beautiful. And I had the opportunity to seize it in the transition of new Batman, praise to Robert Pattinson and his journey as Batman. So
we call that acquire, not seize. But I mean,
I like acquire is better. Acquire. I might have seized it. That's a different story.
Yeah. I get it.
If you instead of seize, if you say steal, and it actually might sound worse, but the Marines took the word steal and made it an acronym: strategically take equipment to alternate locations. So you just strategically took that to an alternate location.
I strategically took it with pleasure and pride, and now it hangs on my bedroom wall.
So look, man. Yeah. So you come to the States, and you're in somewhere in Florida at age 10, and then how long did you stay in Florida? Kind of take us through, your formative years.
Yeah, so the Florida days were a lot, or one third plus of my life. So from 10 to 24, I lived in Florida. I'm 33 now, so to give you perspective. And I lived in Miami for a few years. That's where I migrated to from Jamaica. And then most of the time, though, I am a Gator. That's what I'm wearing actually right here now. University of Florida.
Dude, we have a very, it's LSU, man. I mean, between LSU and Notre Dame and Penn State and our Carolina friends, like that's bold. Gator, wow.
Always got to rep. Always stay true to yourself. So lived in Gainesville for several years because my sister got to University of Florida, and we were so new to America as immigrants. We stick together. So we moved with my sister when she went to college to University of Florida. So I did my high school in Gainesville, and then I got into the University of Florida, and I went there. I was there during the Tebow years. The Aaron Hernandez years, I didn't catch the basketball, but I was on the tail of that. So I was there during the glory days.
Wow, yeah. Joe's got so much to say. You're talking NCAA
that's
sports.
Like I'm trying to think that that's brave to, mention the Hernandez era.
Yeah, no, we have to mention it. We can't pretend it didn't exist.
Fair, yes, well done. So in your journey, you are in Florida, you're doing your thing, you're living your life. At some point in your path, you had an accident. And I do want to talk about that for a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so that segues perfectly into where I was. So, when I went to the University of Florida, my undergrad was in advertising. I always had a passion for film ever since I was in Jamaica. I grew up watching movies, but, coming from an island, LA, Hollywood, movie making, it seems like such a foreign world language. Just, I have no connections to it, nothing. So that being said, it was just something I never really entertained. And it was during my senior year at UF, I was a collegiate athlete. I swam, I played tennis. I wasn't on the actual UF teams itself, but I was very competitive. I played club sports. I was very, very active. And I was in my senior year. It was spring break. We were going to Cancun, Mexico, feeling like kind of that 21 years old, giving the speeches on spring break, like we're about to graduate, like we have the world ahead of us. And on the last day of this trip, I'm waking up, literally, we're getting ready to go to the airport, and I had this pain in my back. And it was very strange. And it had woken me up early, even though I'd been out the night before, very late. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I don't know what this is. And within half hour of this pain, I dropped to the ground, completely paralyzed from T3 level, which is like mid-chest area, down. Friends are grabbing my body. I'm getting rushed to a hospital in Mexico. I mean, this is all happening very fast. And my life is forever changed. And I find out when I get rushed to a hospital in Mexico that I was born with a birth defect called AV malformation that I didn't know existed for 21 years in my life. And all this AVM is pretty much, it's like having extra blood vessels. A lot of people live AVMs and they live totally undisturbed lives. They're most common in the brain, the back, and the stomach. Mine was in my back, close to my spine. Now, if this AVM ruptures, which is what happened to me, it compresses against the spine and can paralyze you. And I had what they call scientifically a spontaneous spinal hematoma, which is pretty much an aneurysm. The only reason they don't call it aneurysm is because I had this malformation that I had from birth that I should never have had. So I had to have emergency surgery in Mexico to save my life because I officially became a T3 complete paraplegic. And I had the surgery and they told me I'd never walk again, that I'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. What set off my injury, ironically enough, was my athleticism. It wasn't going out or having any drinks. It was actually on that trip. My muscle mass was larger than most, and I was working out on the trip in between having fun and exploring. And my muscle mass pushed up against the vessels and popped it like an aneurysm. So working out was what triggered my injury.
Mind blowing, man. Mind blowing. We talk about movement matters. In some case, movement really, really matters. No, that's wild, dude. How long were you in Mexico before you came back to the States? And how did you get moved from A to B if you're paralyzed? How did all that work? A million questions, and Joe has some too.
Yeah, no. So I got emergency. I was in Mexico, so we had the emergency surgery. I think I was there for 3 to 4 days. My cousin, my sister, my friends were all there supporting me. And then, emergency lifted. University Shands, helicopter came, got me. And then my journey to recovery began very quickly after.
So the blood vessel got so big and impacted the nerves or the spine, like the bone?
Yeah, so what happened was blood vessel, muscle pushes up against it, it becomes too tight, pop, and then what was happening literally was that, it compressed my spinal cord because I'm having internal bleeding right now and my chest is swelling up like a balloon. There's nowhere to pop like my chest. So the surgery was to cut open and relieve that pressure and to corduroys stop the bleeding. But I was chained to the hospital bed because literally it feels like my chest is about to explode, but there's nowhere to relieve the pressure. And the reason I was dying was because my heart was losing, it was being compressed as well, and I couldn't breathe. So literally I'm struggling for every breath. I'm freaking out. I'm trying to rip this pressure out of me, but I can't until they sedated me and cut me open.
Mind-blowing stuff, wild. How long was it before you were stabilized?
If I didn't have this surgery in Mexico, forget being paralyzed or the potential of my recovery, I'm gonna die.
Wow.
So I was on the death train. So no time to act, emergency surgery in Mexico within that day, and every hour, every minute that this is still compressing my heart and my spine, I am losing any chance of recovery because it's just doing further and further damage.
And how long were you in Mexico before you came back to Florida?
3 to 4 days till I was stable enough to get in the helicopter jet and get back to the U.S.
But when you got back to the U.S., what accessibility did you have? How were you paralyzed, T3 paralyzed at that point still, or what?
I was T3 paralyzed for months. Yeah, I came out of it. I was in the emergency room in Shands in Gainesville, just to make sure, to give you perspective, gents, my doctor in Mexico gave the notes of what happened to me, handwritten on a sheet of paper and put it on my gurney as I'm being carted out of Mexico, so everything kind of had, all these tests had to be done in the US to what actually happened to me and where am I at. So there was a few more days in the hospital in Florida, and the doctor came, and I'll never forget these words for the rest of my life. And he said, you're a T3 complete, you're completely paralyzed. I can't promise you that you'll ever walk again, but I promise you that if you do not do the physical therapy or attempt physical therapy, you will never walk again. And he just walked out and left me with those words, and my obsession became my journey to recovery very shortly after.
Blessing in disguise. Imagine if that happened on the airplane. Yeah, they can speed up, but man, so timing was sounds like of the essence, and you lucked out not being at 30,000 feet.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, right? It's would it have been better to get onto American soil?
Yeah.
It was an hour and a half flight. I don't know. There's only one other person I know with an AVM, spinal AVM, and theirs popped literally as they were walking onto their plane because they were backpacking through Europe, and the pressure of the backpack on the back is what popped his.
Is that something you can get at your annual physical or whatever, get tested for?
You can get tested for AVMs at childbirth, but guess what? It's very expensive, gentlemen. So it's not something that they normally look for because it's not very common to have an AVM. And it's not genetic. It's you could be the one, 5 babies, from the last, and you can get an AVM. So you don't know.
You're in Florida. The doctors have given you this prognosis. and the ball's in your court. Like, you chose to take that ball and literally run with it. And that's some would say that's just survival, or this journey to want to just live. How did you frame it up? What was your mindset after you heard that prognosis or guidance?
Yeah, no, rehab became a mission, became a passion, and became an obsession. I immediately wanted to go into inpatient rehab. Once they, they check you in the ER and you're stable, there's nothing to do. Like, I'm paralyzed. I'm T3 complete. So there's nothing for them to do. I have to learn outside of my recovery how to live an adaptive life with being a T3 complete. And there's all kinds of things that impacts when it comes to the bathroom and sensation and using a wheelchair. So I immediately went from the ER to inpatient rehab, where I stayed for 3 months, which is a long time, because I started to see gains in my recovery. I was completely paralyzed for about a month plus. And I was assigned an occupational therapist and a physical therapist. And for those who don't know, occupational therapists focus on you living the day-to-day. So that's me getting into a wheelchair, using a transfer board from the bed to the wheelchair, because you have to slide your bum over now to a chair. I can't get up. And just how to use the bathroom and the day-to-day life. And then the PT is the one that pushes you to try and maximize your potential recovery neurologically. So, to be totally candid, gentlemen, I didn't really care about my OT that much, because I was so focused on trying to become, ambulatory again. And that was not the right mindset. That was not the right mindset. And it took me many years to get to that point, because, one important thing I have learned through my journey to recovery is that you can fight for a better tomorrow, but you have to love yourself today. And I did not do that for a long time in my journey. I was so caught up with trying to get back to who I was that I did not love myself to today, because I was getting better. To cut back to the story, I started to gain sensation first after a month. Sensation started to come back. And then mobility started to come back. And then, the team, the OT, the PT were like, wow, like stuff is starting to come back. Like he's coming back. So, I just lived to work out. I was always in the gym, even when the PT didn't even have a class for me. I was, there was even like political controversy in the hospital, because they're like, Andrew's in the gym past hours, who let him in? And like the OT had snuck me in with keys, but the OT's not supposed to do that. It's the PT's job. And they were, because I just wanted to maximize around my recovery. I'm terrified of regret, and my biggest regret at the time was, did I not fully maximize what I could get back in this very pivotal time? Like, the biggest time to get spinal recovery is the first few months, years. I wanted to maximize that window.
Shout out to all the OTs and PTs out there listening. We got a handful of them in Ainsley's Angels family. But I mean, like the mental perseverance, and fortitude that you had to essentially determine, like, you were going to have early on, right? Like, we'll say as soon as you got back to Gainesville. What was that like mentally, laying in bed at night in inpatient rehab, paralyzed for whatever the 90 days you were there?
Yeah, no, I never accepted I would never walk again, to be totally honest. I never accepted that. Jamaicans can be very stubborn, so that stubborn element, I definitely got it. I got that from my father. And no, I was on a mission. And ironically enough, gentlemen, so to give context, since my injury, I've gone from wheelchair to walker to crutches to one crutch to now I walk with a cane, and I still go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, and I continue to feel gains. So I have been very fortunate, extremely fortunate in my recovery, and gone past what I was told I would never walk again at one point by other doctors, and so I'm very happy with where I am today. And that being said, I also have a newfound appreciation for OTs, because it was actually the OTs, ironically, that and beyond. And we're like, well, we're going to help you adapt to today, but we're seeing some signs of hope. So we're going to jump on that bandwagon and continue to push you. So I had a newfound respect. But to tell you what, I did in bed, it segues into my filmmaking career, because the first video I ever made was in my inpatient rehab. And imagine being 21. What am I preoccupied with, gentlemen? I am going out, I'm having fun, I'm making friends, I'm exploring America, I'm leaving Florida, I'm going to Georgia, Louisiana, going to football games, I'm learning about American culture. And now I'm in a room with stroke patients, diabetics, people with no limbs, people in their final days telling me their regrets, their words of wisdom as a young man. And I became very motivated by their stories. And I rolled around from room to room. And one of the gifts I got from my friends to keep myself busy was a crappy iFlip camcorder. I don't even know if they make them anymore. And I met all these people. And while I was meeting with them, I interviewed them. And I asked them to share their stories with me. And I cut the stories together. This is what I was doing in rehab. When I was not working out, I was making this. And I stitched our stories together as a thank you to the hospital for the care they had given me, and to show that their work had impact, not just to me, but all the other people in this rehab. And that's when the drive to become a filmmaker became 100%. That's when I found my purpose in terms of my career. Was actually at my lowest point. Ironically, I was like, let me take on, I got to try and walk again. But let me take on also this behemoth of a career that I now have this newfound passion for.
I mean, that's when one, if you still have a copy of that video, I would really like to see it. Two, I mean, isn't that when most people get that they find their purpose, is when, it's like the fight or flight, sink or swim, walk or don't walk, paralyzed, not paralyzed, you have to make that decision and draw the line in the sand and say, no, I will not, go deeper into this hole. And no, I will not, be a T3, paraplegic. I'm going to go on with life, and I'm going to become a successful director, and I'm going to walk again. And those conversations in individuals' heads, in my mind, they don't happen when you're up here. Why would they? You know what I mean? It takes, it takes being down to find that positive and grab a hold and not let go. And it's, a lot of people don't find that, they get pulled down. But bravo to you, sir, for not giving up. I mean, that's special.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think before my injury, I will say life was very easy. And because life was so easy for me, that I didn't really need to do any introspection into who I was and what I was passionate about, because everything just came so easy. I always did well in school. I was socializing. I was having fun. I played sports. Everything just came easy. I didn't really have to think too much. And then when you are forced to sit still and you literally cannot move, let me tell you, you do a lot of introspection into who you are, and you learn a lot about yourself and what you're willing to do, but I can't say enough how, the recovery portion is all great, and I'm all very fortunate for that, but I really cannot emphasize how much it is to love yourself today. You need to maximize your recovery. Yes, I've been very fortunate in recovery, but regardless of if I never walked again, love yourself today, because there ain't nothing wrong with being a paraplegic or living an adaptive life, whatever limitations you might have. Love yourself today. You're an amazing person, and get creative with it. And filmmaking is creativity. So I've been creative in my adaptive life and in my filmmaking career.
That's beautiful. I mean, I wrote it down when you said it. You can fight for a better tomorrow, but you have to love yourself today. That's the quote of the podcast. And this is why we have these conversations, for these nuggets that someone needs to hear right now. And so to love yourself today is where you start. That's how you reflect. That's how you go introspective. the fight is fueled by that love. And how perfect is it to talk about love on Valentine's Day? So, Andrew, dude, we could wrap this episode with this. It's solid flipping content, brother. So thank you. And we didn't script anything. We just said, let's talk and let's dance. And that's what we do. And during this dance, your vulnerability and your willingness to share just took us to a place we didn't anticipate. But we have to talk about the short film that you did for Ainsley's Angels in partnership with On, because it is out there on the interwebs and it is touching people's emotions in a way that might be beyond where you wanted it or thought it would go. So let's talk about that. How do you as a director come up with the storyboard essentially to get to where that 2-minute and 20-second video is today?
Yeah, no, I think the beautiful thing of having the opportunity to direct that piece, first off, thank you, Rooster, for, giving me that opportunity, is, you have conversations with, people such as yourself who know, who have created this organization, this culture, this world, that's extremely inclusive, that, redefines running and how people see running. And who do we need to hear from to get other people who don't know that this is open to them to join? So I think from very early on when we were conversing with On, and you and I were discussing, Rooster, it was whose perspective do we want to see? And I think one of the biggest things about the piece is that, well, who are the people running who don't know they have the opportunity to run? And those are the people who are disabled. So we always knew from very early on that we wanted it to be their perspective as runners, to let other runners know, or disabled individuals know across the country that this is open to them. You can still run, but I don't, I'm missing limbs, or I use a cane, or no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In this community, we help each other across the finish line, literally. We will pull, we will run together. We will find a way. Together we shall, I think, is one of the mottos and the culture of the community. And it very much shows in the people that I had the opportunity to meet. Similar to my time in a hospital, I had the opportunity to sit down with people and ask them to share their story with me. And I got to meet Myra, Jessica, Jared, rest in peace. And their stories were, beautiful. And I think they say it best, what this culture and community is. And I just had the opportunity to document it and actually attend a race, which was awesome.
Yeah, man, I got some questions about how it felt to be there at race day, but I do want to make it clear to our listeners that while I had the honor of interviewing Andrew to make sure he was the right director, it was On's team that found you, because they were passionate about making sure that the director of this short film had perspective when it comes to living a life with a disability. And the period of time that went into finding you was a good number of months. And when we finally did find you and I was presented with your portfolio, if you will, the second I met you and we spoke and I looked at your website, I was like, this is the right guy. This is the perspective to tell the story, as you said, of our rider perspective, because we have a lot of content out there, but nowhere in our 12 years of doing this do we have any content is purely from the rider's perspective. And that's what you brought to light, my friend. And forever are we grateful for your documentary.
I appreciate, yeah. Rooster, to be totally candid, there's not really many disabled directors. Unfortunately, sometimes when you have a disability, you have to weigh your limitations. Being a director can be very physically arduous, depending on the set you're on. It can be done. It 100% can be done. But unfortunately, the industry is not aware of that. So just as though I've, learned to be creative in my adaptive life, I have to, unfortunately, sometimes when I'm in the industry, show them that, look, not only do my creative ways of adapting to life, allow me to direct, but I actually can direct, if not just as good, but better than my counterparts. So it's really the hottest thing about being a disabled director is opportunity. And I was granted an opportunity with this documentary and forever grateful for that. But It's just fighting for those opportunities to show disabled directors in Hollywood, around the world, that we have a seat at the table too when it comes to filmmaking.
That's strong, dude. Made me get really emotional here because, God, Joe, go ahead.
Well, that's like the second or probably third time where like you said earlier, like you could end it, like to show the world that like you deserve a seat at the table. Like it shouldn't even really like come down to that in the world, right? Like whatever, regardless of disability, right? But you as a director are there for your creative mind, regardless of if there's a physical or a mental, impairment. Like you're there for your physical or your internally, you know what I mean? Like your creative vision. So, I mean, you definitely earned a seat at the table in my book. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, here's the thing, I think it's getting better. We're redefining disability. Similar, if you're prone to migraines and you need to take pills, I walk in a wheelchair and I need to roll up a ramp. I mean, I think one of the things that's great about the On Running doc too is that we don't highlight anyone's disability. We don't say what they have. None of that. I don't care, to be honest with you. I mean, I care when it comes to making sure I'm spending time with you and I'm respectful to your needs. But when it comes to you as an individual and as a runner, we're all here to run. We're all here to partake in this culture and this community. And you just see people, because that's all we are. And we all have our own limitations regardless of disability. Yes, some are more severe than others. And you need to weigh that and be respectful of that. But we are just people. And that is one of the things that I am very much like a strong advocate for, is when it comes to disabled content, just seeing the person. I don't want to highlight people's disabilities. I want to highlight the person, because that is what's unique. That is what's special. Yes, it's a part of them. Yes, it's important that you can share that, but it is not the focus. The focus is the person always.
You nailed it, man. And in the Ainsley's Angels family, we don't ask what your disability is unless it's something we need to know to safely make the world accessible. But otherwise, like, we just want to celebrate that together we shall accomplish so much more than as an individual mantra. And we really appreciate you highlighting that. It was very clear in the short film that you were not focusing on any one, element of a person's life, but rather the right to run, the right to be included. It was beautiful. In the production process, you brought a team down to Lake Charles, Louisiana. How was the Sunset 5K for you? And correct me if I'm wrong, Beth and Jason had a chance to be your legs for the race.
They were my legs for the race. So, I walk with a cane, so, I cannot run in the traditional sense. And yeah, I had the opportunity to be a rider, but also doing my job. I had my camera in my hand and I was getting the rider perspective, because I was getting my perspective as a rider, literally. So no, the race was amazing. And it was all about the experience, especially too. That was another thing when we were discussing the doc, like capturing the experience of the race from the rider perspective, and the feeling and the sensation that being included in this community. It was fantastic. I loved being able to participate in it. Although I will say, as a filmmaker, I wish I could have gotten like 2 or 3 more races so I can get more and more takes. But that's the thing about life.
Yeah, well, you're invited to come to any race. I mean, we're active in Ainsley's Angels in Southern California. Trish is listening to this. She's our ambassador there, man. Just go to ainsley'sangels.org, click join today, California, SoCal, and you can do races, man. They do Carlsbad events. They do events from San Diego to LA. So we'd love to have you on the course some more.
Or Washington, D.C. if you.
Hey,
So
Joe.
the Marine Corps Marathon, Andrew, is known as the People's Marathon, the last weekend in October. Maybe we'll see out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely down to do another race. Happy to.
Anyone that's interested in running the Marine Corps Marathon on the official Ainsley's Angels charity team, email Joe at ainsley'sangels.org. Spots are going quick. We went live last week, so don't delay if you want to participate, whether you're a rider or a runner. Joe at ainsley'sangels.org. We'll see you in October.
Almost took the full episode to get that one in, but you got it.
I've been waiting for it, though. I was trying to figure out when.
Good job. Good job. Andrew, there's a thing where Joe has to plug the Marine Marathon almost like in every episode, unless we film between October and December. But anyway, he's a champ at that. I do have a question about perspective. You know, you mentioned playing on club teams and being a runner growing up and an athlete and still an athlete to this day, just in a different accessible kind of way. What was the perspective from being a rider at the Sunset 5K versus road races and running experiences that you had before your accident?
That's a great question. It is different. It is different. There's no denying that. But it's different and it's the same. That's the honest answer, because you feel like, you know, you're outside, you know, the scenery, you're getting that essence, you're still feeling the wind on your face. You can plug your AirPods in just like you would if you were, you know, traditionally running, and you can unplug and just be immersed in the scenery around you. But then at the same time, it's you are in a chair. So, you know, it's different in the sense that sometimes maybe I'm not sweating all the way down my shirt as I normally would, but there is still strain depending on like getting in, getting out. You're being active. You're being a part of the community. You're still socializing. You're still networking. There's that camaraderie. I'm seeing it from the lens of being on the street, not on the sidelines. So very much the same, but different as well. And I think another important thing for all disabled individuals, you know, thinking about partaking in this, who have partaked in this, or are afraid sometimes of going out into the open. Like they say, I want to do that, but because of XYZ with my disability, do I want to put myself out there? You should never be ashamed of your disability, ever. It's just a piece of who you are. Don't hide it. Don't suppress it. You know, this is another mistake I think I made early on, because I was in this strange in-between where technically, because I am pretty fit and I go to the gym all the time, people all the time just come up to me like, dude, you hurt your leg playing basketball? I get that all the time because they see how much I bench. They see what I'm doing. They're like, this guy can't be once completely paralyzed. It escapes them. I've been on dates with girls and they're like, oh, so like, yeah, you know, I could easily hide how severe my injury is. And I did do it for a time, and that was wrong. And you need to be very open. Now I own it with pride. Like, yeah, you know, I went through this journey. I walk with a cane, incomplete paraplegic. You know, I can't do X, Y, Z, but I do it this way. You know, own who you are, be proud of who you are, love who you are. Never hide your disability. Never do that. And own it. Go out there and run. You have the opportunity if you want.
One more example, if I could end the podcast on. Dude, just I love the advocacy. I love the way that you're able to put these words together in such a meaningful and impactful way. And I'm really just pumped that we had a chance to have you on today. Believe it or not, we've been here for an hour already. It's fast. It goes quick. Joe, what's top of mind for you? Anything that's you want to ask as we get closer to the end of the episode?
Infinite questions about, like, we'll just say Hollywood, you know, like what it's like to live there. I don't know if you live in the geographic confines of Hollywood, but what it's like to live in Hollywood and work in Hollywood.
Life is Hollywood. Oh, that's a whole, we could have an hour just. But I'll give you a cliff note. So, you know, I went to USC School of Cinematic Arts for my MFA in film production. And that's what drew me out from Florida, from the 24, you know, where we were early on in our story, to Los Angeles. I was like, if I'm going to pursue film fully after my initial interest from the hospital and a few other just very small, you know, learning myself as a creative films, like if I'm going to do this, I need to have an entryway. So I applied to get my MFA and I got into the USC School of Cinematic Arts. And believe it or not, it was actually a hype video that I made for the University of Florida that got me into one of the most prestigious film schools in the world. So tying back to the UF connection. And I came here, and I can tell you there was probably like in a school of, I can't even tell you how many, there's many, ample, I'll say that. I didn't have anyone else with a cane in my class. You know, disability is pretty much non-existent. Then it is becoming more now, but like in terms of representation in the filmmaking community, I think so many disabled individuals, especially in the director's seat. I think it's more common in the writers because you can sit and write anywhere, but especially as a director, seeing disabled directors was I didn't have any. I didn't have any references. So that being said, it's, you know, I didn't want to accept it at first, but like I had to pave my own ground. I had no idol. I had no mentor. I had no one to say, this is how you can make it as a disabled director. I had to say to myself, how can I do this? And took every day building new pavement. And how do I position myself not only as just like a disabled director who can tell stories about people with disabilities, but I can tell any stories. I have a story that is a sci-fi thriller. I have a horror comedy. I mean, my disability is only one aspect of me. So I think the biggest thing about going back to your question about living in Hollywood is that there's so much. First, there's so many amazing creatives here, and I love it. But on the flip side, there's a lot of work to be done in the industry. There's a lot of work to be done in the industry in terms of disability representation, disability accessibility. If I wasn't as high level as I am, I know a bunch of sets that I just look at and I'm like, a person in a wheelchair couldn't navigate this set. And it's easily fixable. It's not that they don't belong on this set. It's just that this set hasn't caught up with the times and had, you know, taken the thought to look at it and say, wow, if I make this accessible, a person in a wheelchair could actually direct this episode. But they don't think about that. So it's on me and it's on all the other disabled directors, because let's be real, the world ain't changing itself. You know, I can't trust anyone else to go do it. To show them that not only can we create the content to the level that they want, but we can provide a unique perspective that arguably could make it better. And we don't just make content to say we're making content and that it's, you know, from a disabled lens and, you know, but even if it's not good, no, we're here to make good stuff. And we're here to stay, and I'm going to continue to fight on that path. So that's where I'm at.
Damn. I don't even know where to. I don't even know where to go. It's like, just man. I knew when I first met you and we had our first chat that we were like so on the same wavelength when it came to this desire to use our gifts in a way to better the world. And for that, I really appreciate this second opportunity to have you on my computer screen in a team Zoom chat, because it's almost like we picked up where we left off. I don't know what I'm saying. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well, sir. Both of you. And it was my, you know, like, it was really, truly a pleasure to come down there. I mean, we had, what, 2 days to shoot, you know, and I knew I wanted to capture the race, of course, but like, you know, to have the accessibility to enter these people's lives and for them to share their stories with us, you know, Jessica, Jared, Myra, you know, it's all, you know, going into their homes. And it's interesting because, you know, I even had times when I was down there where when we were interviewing and discussing each other and just we would get on tangents, like, you know, from one disabled person to the other, how we talk about each other. And I remember there was times, to be honest, where we had to cut the camera and I had to have talk sometimes. I'd be like, why do you talk about yourself that way? You know? And it just comes to show us that all of us outside of disability, we struggle sometimes with like the self-love. You know, and I think sometimes we're very hard on each other as individuals and we're very hard on ourselves. I think probably our biggest critic is ourselves. And we need reminders outside of ourselves. I mean, that's what people do. We help each other, or we should, to just remind us that, like, we're doing great. And, you know, we should try and bring each other up. And there's no shame in just trying to do your best in this life. So outside of just doing it for on running shoes, it was good to meet other disabled individuals, to hear their perspective and have the opportunity to help bring each other up and race with each other and run.
Yeah, indeed. What a blast. I feel like I want to ask you I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm going to give you some names of the people that you highlighted stories of. And I want you to react in like a sentence or less or whatever you want when I say their name. And I just want to see, this is a little fun we're going to have. You ready?
All right, hit me.
Okay. Myra's husband, Blaze.
Youthful, unexpected, and loving.
I love that. Perfect. All right. All accurate, by the way. How about this one? Mike Gray's wife, Lindsay, specifically the son they're raising named Derek.
sweet, kind, very aware of what he wants when he wants it.
That's perfect. I love it. Jessica.
Eloquent, passionate, sweet. Yeah.
And of course, rest in peace, Jared.
Jared was, I mean, wow. Yeah. Jared was, I'm trying to think of the right word for Jared. Jared spoke with conviction. Jared was honest. Jared was nervous, but you would never know. And when I met with him, he overcame his fear and was able to speak his truth for me. And I'll be forever like very appreciative of that. I had an honest conversation with him.
And we now have that documented forever. Jared's voice lives on in the interwebs, his perspective, his heart, his words were, gosh, so strong. And Joe and I and the Ainsley's Angels family had a chance to debut the video at Louisiana Marathon Dinner in the company of Jessica and her closest family and about 300 other people. And I can tell you, Andrew, the impact of seeing her husband spotlighted and documented in the way that you did brought just so much joy to not just her heart and face, but everybody in the room. So know that while the video is amazing at giving a voice to those that may not always have a voice, it also brought Jared's heart to life forever. So thank you.
No, it was my pleasure. And I don't think, fun little fact, I know Jessica and Jared, they do this little bop at the end of the video. That's actually like a lover's, like it's a routine for them at the end of every race. They would bop each other. And we were able to capture that without them even knowing. So I'm really happy that not only his voice, but we were able to capture some of their truth as a couple.
We were able to take a picture of them bopping, which essentially is doing like a fist pump, a touching of the hands across their chairs, and take that picture and put it on a wheel cover of a chair that is going to roll on in Jared's memory forever. And so, yes, what an amazing moment to capture and the intimacy of that moment as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Before I close out, Joe, is there anything else you want to get in other than how it feels to live in Hollywood?
I just need to get out to LA and like hold your pocket for a day.
It's LA is a fun place to be. I'm very fortunate with my career. I'm currently in the Paramount Emerging Directors Program, so I'm just shadowed on a TV show, a director, and you normally shadow a TV director before you direct an episode. I'm gearing up to try and shoot my first feature. One of my projects is actually in relation to a spinal cord injury, so that's kind of a version of my story, and struggling with not only the mental health element of having a disability, but a relationship, because I think intimacy and relationships is a unique element in disability, and I think there's a lot of stigmas around that need to get broken down, and all disabled people just need to date like everyone else. So
yeah, amen, man. We've talked about in the PERMA V model of positive psychology, essentially meaning, relationships, and engagement being the key major parts of that. And you nailed it. Like relationships and engagement and finding meaning in your life, like all of those things are essential. Yes, you have Maslow's hierarchy, but like well beyond that, is this thing that we don't necessarily talk about when we look through the positive psychology lens, but we try to highlight that. So yeah, I don't know if any of that's going to get included in the episode, but I did want to, say that you're speaking our language and you start talking about relationships and dating and the importance of connection.
Nice. Good.
Andrew, again, our gratitude for coming on and chatting with us. Like, I know that we could continue to go down so many more tangents and thoroughfares, and maybe that's more the reason to have you come back one day. Our episodes, we like to wrap out with the question to you. Although you've already left us with so much to ponder and think about, what do you want to leave the listeners of the Together We Shall podcast with as we wrap this episode?
That is a great question. Today's a new day. Go out, live life. No tomorrow is ever guaranteed. So, like I said earlier, you fight for a better tomorrow, but, love yourself today. Well, I'm going to add an addendum, live today. Go out. you know, do the things that you want to do in your life, because no time like the present.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.
If you're still listening, we have a treat for you. And if you're watching this podcast on the Ainsley's Angels YouTube channel, you get to watch this treat. On proudly presents Ainsley's Angels, a right-to-run film directed by Andrew Reid, who is also our newest member of the Ainsley's Angels of America Board of Directors.
Growing up with a disability, I was always a spectator. You know, it's one thing to be a spectator, but it takes you to a whole nother level to be able to participate. Just because I'm disabled doesn't mean I don't have the right to run. I can't tell you how many people stop me all the time and go, "You're a runner?" Ainsley's Angels is a beautiful organization that gives disabled individuals the opportunity to run like others.
We are called Angel Riders, and people behind us, they are lending us their legs so that we can do the race. And they're called our Angel Runners. Rider and runner, and together we shall get it done.
It doesn't matter what kind of disability you have. We spread joy and love to everybody.
It's just such a positive, supportive, loving atmosphere. It's something that's rarely found these days.
My wife Jessica and I, we do as many races as we can together.
We're very competitive.
The exhilaration I feel in the middle of a race in the sled it's a euphoria that I otherwise probably would have never experienced.
Go fast.
Sometimes I'll stay up all night just because I can't sleep, so I'm so excited.
The feel of just moving at such a fast pace.
It's sheer adrenaline.
And then as you get closer and closer to the finish line and people are actually cheering you on and there are signs and yelling, it's like nothing I ever got to experience in my life.
Being disabled, running, just means freedom. It just means acceptance, and I can just be. So, yeah, you can just forget about everything just for a little while.
If you want to run a race, hey, here's a chariot. Whether it's run, walk, we'll find a way.
Anyone I see out and about around town, I'm like, you know about the Angels yet?